Hello, hello. Hi, Amber. I'm also seeing a paired LinkedIn user, but it's not telling me who you are. So, whoever just said hello, tell me your name so I can see that. Rob, are we paired with your channel?
We are paired with my channel.
Let me do this, everybody, so we can all see each other. Um, as you're logging in, say hi. Tell us in the comments that you're there. Otherwise, we won't know. Say hi to each other. Welcome to Tilted Bench. For those of you who have never been here before, this is a weekly show I do where we talk with coaches about coaching, why it's important, how it works, what it's like. I'm very happy today to have Robb Gilbear with me. Rob, hi. Thanks for being here.
How's it going, Nathan?
It's good. It's good. Rob, where are you coming to us from?
Toronto, Canada.
Okay. I just finished Rob's book, everybody. I'm going to plug it for him. Die Before They Do. And I mirrored. I forgot that. Sorry. But anyway, it's the episode title is an ode to the book. It's a great book. You should check it out. And Rob, I asked because I know you travel a lot, and I do know that in the book you talk about Toronto being home base, but I wasn't sure if you were still there or not. So
yes, still here, and bought a dream house here last year. So putting in some roots.
Oh, congratulations! That's awesome. Why don't you get us kicked off here? Hi, Jen. Glad you made it in. Tell us, Rob, what you do, what kind of coaching, and tell us a little bit about how you got into it.
I'll start by telling the tale of how I got into it. I think that's a more interesting way, and then we can land on what I'm doing now and how I might explain that. If we would have met 5 years ago, I would have said to you that I'm a leadership coach by day. I was the head of people and culture in tech companies, and I got to coach leaders and CEOs and all sorts of fun work there. And it was the part of my job that I loved the most. It was the part of my job where I was like, ooh, I do this for free. This is incredible. And then on the side, I started coaching people, creatives, and I maybe would have said I'm a creativity coach or a creatives coach. And I had a singer, a writer, a photographer. I had those kinds of people as clients, but it was definitely not something I could do full time. And then I started changing my life around habits and very intentionally start to shift the things I was doing on a regular basis and sharing the journey, and particularly on Instagram at the time, sharing what I was doing, what was working, the impact that it was having on my clarity, on my confidence, on my creativity. And then I had people started to ping me and say, ooh, this, whatever you're doing here, give me some of this habit stuff. So I called myself a habit strategist for a bit. And when I got the guts to quit my full-time job and go in all in coaching, that's what I did. I called myself a habits strategist, habits coach. And unexpectedly, 11 of those first 12 clients were entrepreneurs. I was like, this is interesting. Why is that? And I reflected on, they're rebellious. They go to the beat of their own drum. They like solving interesting problems. They tend to be creative thinkers. I was like, oh, these are my people. This is why. And then the last twist or turn in the road is other coaches and some purpose-driven consultants start showing up and ask me, how the hell had I done what I'd done? How did I go from having a director level role to having a full-time roster? How was I getting clients overseas? How was I making all this happen? And then in one span, I had like 3 people in a 10-day window come to pick my brain. And at the end of those calls, 2 of them said, how do I have another one of these calls? And I was like, the universe is giving me another nudge, which led to me to what I'm doing now. I run a company called Growth Habit, and I work with purpose-driven coaches and some consultants, and really helping you grow your business with clients that you love to serve. Whether that is on the getting alignment, clarity on your niche and your messaging to make sure that it really resonates with you and with the people you want to attract, the structuring your business, and how do you attract and enroll clients, like do sales so it doesn't feel slimy, and a whole bunch kind of in between.
One of the things that I've been having some recent conversations with folks about, and that's kind of an ongoing conversation about coaching, is that it's such specific work. It's such close work that you need to have good fits between coaches and clients. The folks that you describe working with now, I mean, having just read your book, like I can see some of like where those connections are. Can you tell the folks in the audience, how is it, how does that fit? What is it about like your own life that you think has particularly made that work so well with working with those clients?
I have been hyper curious forever, rebellious, and have this like creativity streak for a long time. The first career I had was in music. I was a DJ, I was a music producer, I ran record labels. So I've always had this duality of loving creativity and curious about business. And that's what was like, not only did I do music stuff, but I ran record labels. And then even when I ended up in my second career in people and culture, when people departments are run well, it is about how do we make an environment where people can show up as they are, where people feel trusted, where people have a clarity of where they're going next, where people feel they can show up as a human at work. But also, if you're not paying attention to the business needs and treating it as a real strategic arm of the business, well, it doesn't matter how well you're treating people, because if the business isn't doing well, there are no jobs. So it's always been at this intersection of people, creativity, and business.
Three things that like ought to belong together, right?
Totally belong together.
I think that one of the things that has always been important to me is curiosity. I think one of the things that you seem to have is a great curiosity about life and openness to kind of pursuing new things. Do you think that that's something that most of your clients have right off the bat, or do you have to kind of help them find that openness?
I'm at the point now where I think my messaging, my approach, the way I'm showing up in the world is I'm not attracting people that don't innately have that. And I think there's plenty of people who are on their own coaching journey who maybe went years of their life where they had lost that or lost touch with that. But through their own journey, their own work, their own like, oh, I got to this place, this sucks. And coaching has helped me immensely. And now I want to serve others and be a coach, which is a very typical kind of path for a lot of coaches. Once you're on the other side of that, even if you had a decade or two where you weren't leaning into curiosity and trying new things and playing that way, you are once you're on the other side of it. And I don't feel my age. People often think I'm younger than I actually am. And I credit that to that curiosity, that wanting to learn. So it's the energy I put out, and those are the kind of people that I tend to attract.
That's great. There's a tendency, I think, for a lot of us, especially in the professional realm, to get older and want to feel established, feel comfortable, feel like part of the path is that you don't have to be curious anymore because you've got it all figured out, right? Jen was on the show several episodes ago. I wonder if curiosity is a prerequisite for even being coachable. What do you think, Rob?
I think so, because I think that is insinuating that you might not have the answers. There might be a different way, that there might be a different way for you to look at things, that maybe you are, inside your own container and can't see the label that's affixed to the outside of your container. It's my favorite quote about coaching is you can't read the label from inside the jar. So I think so, because if you don't have that curiosity, then it's hard to be coachable, because coachable means that you are open to a different way of seeing things, looking at things, and navigating things.
There was a conversation I was in earlier this morning where we were talking about coaching and clients, and that in a sense, you have to have, as a client, you've got to have the right mindset. You've got to have that openness. But there also has to be the right moment. Like you have to reach people when they're at a time where they're ready for whatever it is that you're going to help them get towards. I imagine we're laughing at the same thing.
We definitely are. Yes.
I mean, if I known, I could have put on a darker T-shirt, and then we would match it more closely. Rob, take us on this path. So I love the title of the book, Die Before They Do. And you have this story. I know it's the last story in the book, so I hope you don't mind spoiling it a little bit if you tell us where that title comes from, because it's a great story. And I think it's an important part of your perspective, right?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm okay to spoil it. So
there's plenty of other good stories, everybody.
There's plenty of other good stories in the book. There is. I have unfortunately known plenty of people to die, and many of them at their own hand. And the number of people, particularly men, who I have been friends with or been close with, who have died by suicide or due to complications with mental health is unfortunately high. And there was a friend of mine who had passed away and was dealing with that level of grief again and just really facing it. And I was out for dinner with my partner, who's now my fiance. And I was overcome with emotion as I just realized that because I've been through different cycles of life, because I'm comfortably in my mid 40s, because I've had 3 different careers, that I know a whole heck of a lot of people. And I was just really feeling the heaviness of the emotion. I was like, wow, I'm so grateful for all these people that I've learned, that I've grown with, that I've got to know, that I've shared time with. And it also means that I am fortunately going to know a whole lot more people who are going to pass away. Um, and, I just was sitting in that emotion and sharing this with my partner as far as like the amount of people that are going to pass away. And then she says, look, well, what if it's not like that? And I was like, what are you talking about? And she said, what if you die before they do? And it just really reframed things as far as, well, that's not an assumption that I can make. And I think the book ends off with like, yeah, don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. Can't take anything for granted. Who knows what's around the corner? And um, then to really just embrace this, my favorite Wayne Dyer quote, which is to not die with your music still in you, and to use the time now to express yourself, to apologize for your past mistakes, for leaning into the things that you've always wanted to do, but you've never given yourself permission for, to just fully express yourself, because you don't know if you're going to die before they do. You don't know how much time you have here.
The everybody, one of the other title possibilities I was toying around with for the episode was that Wayne Dyer quote that Rob just mentioned, because I skipped ahead and I read the end of the book before I read the rest of it. I'm not sure why I did that. I don't normally do it, but I just happened to do it this time. And when I saw both that story about the title of the book and then that quote from Wayne Dyer, like I loved both of them. And I suggested to Rob both of them as titles, because dying with your music in you is something that we don't want to happen, because we all have something to give to the world. We all have something that we can share with others. Rob, one of the repeat themes on this show is that you need to share your stories, that a lot of what many coaches spend their time doing is building confidence in their clients and helping them learn ways to share whatever their experiences are with other people's in order to make the world a better place.
Yeah, it's really true. Especially in a world where on LinkedIn, where you can search for mindset coach, you can search for leadership coach, you can search for all these things and get over 1 million people for any one of those individual searches. So there's so many other people doing a similar thing. And what truly allows you to stand out is you sharing your own story. And what's going to allow someone to feel seen, feel understood, feel is this connection with like, oh, they understand. Oh, they've been through it too. And it creates a human to human connection bridge. So it's important from getting your message out point of view, but it's also important from the perspective of actually making a deep connection with someone.
Do you want to clip over while we've got this right here? I think that part of what those stories can do is help bridge these type of situations that Brian says about here, where you're thinking about and feeling the weight of your own clients' fears and insecurities, and you have to find ways to kind of help them through that. What do you think about the process of kind of feeling those and helping connect and help your clients get through stuff like that?
Ooh, this is great, because so many people who end up being a coach are really high empathy and they really care about other people, which means that they're more susceptible to the weight, the fears, the pains of other people. And it's no different than any other kind of healing work or any kind of other kind of support work, where you need to find what works for you to be able to cleanse your palate, for you to be able to refuel. Is it time with your dog? Is it journaling? Is it walk in the park? Everyone's a little bit different. For someone, it might be knitting. Like, there's no right or wrong, but just finding what those things are. And like anything else that's a superpower, having incredibly high empathy allows you to be in that kind of space with people, create that kind of environment where someone feels safe and be their, maybe a Sherpa on their journey. The flip side is you can be really weighted down by it. So it can be a whole heck of a lot if you don't have those channels to let it loose.
Yeah, I think so. This was something that came up a couple of episodes ago about this idea of burnout that some coaches run into. I always talk about this, that when you do one-on-one coaching work, or like this is some heavy lifting sometimes, right? Like you have to. I love the word Sherpa that you just used, right? You're the guide, and sometimes you're going up a mountain that feels kind of cold and lonely, and you've got to help them carry that weight and get up there. Do you have specific things that help you kind of keep your charge up, keep your cup filled when all of that starts to wear on you?
Yeah, there's walk with no phone, dancing. Like, I'll put on music and have a one-person dance party. I'll do that regularly. Quality time with the kids or with my partner. Those are all things that bring a lot for me, journaling. And if you're someone who's like, oh, I don't like to journal, because that's something worth saying. Journaling is one of those things that if you get into doing, you realize has such immense benefits, and it's something that a lot of coaches suggest to their clients. But sometimes you get someone who's like, I don't like to journal, I can't journal, I don't like writing. Record yourself voice notes. Like, just record yourself rambling. Just like dump the noise out of your head, and it doesn't have to be pen to paper. It could be just a voice note to yourself, or record a video that you don't intend to share with anyone, and just finding different ways to get the noise out of here and somewhere else.
Right, because it's not about the book, right? It's about whatever that ritual is to help you process through things. Um, I want to swing back around to this empathy that you mentioned a minute ago, because I tend to notice this with coaches. I certainly don't think it's the only profession, but I think it's one of the hallmarks of coaching that people who are coaches tend to be empathetic to varying degrees, in some cases highly. Do you think that for you, that's also connected to the number of different communities you've been connected with? Because you've been a part of a lot of different communities, as you talk about in the book. Do you think that that empathy has played a role in you connecting in different places with different people?
Yeah, I think so. I think this connects to a couple of ideas we're talking about already, is the curiosity plus empathy. Because I think about, say, in high school, where I felt like a bit of an outcast, and I did hang out at the front of the school with the kids that were smoking, and I did hang out in the back of the school with the kids that were doing other stuff, and I, did find a bit of a home with the rave crew, and I did, talk to the quiet person in class who other people might have labeled a geek or whatever, and I just was high empathy and high curiosity, and those two things together really is a powerful combination. So
I think curiosity is a huge hallmark of coaching too, right? Because another thing that comes up regularly is the difference between coaching and consulting, right? Like, you can go in and you can tell somebody what to do, but if you're coaching, you have to have that openness to help them find that path on their own.
yeah, that's the difference, right? The trusting that they have the answers and holding space to ask questions and helping them come to their own conclusions, versus you putting on a consulting hat, which I do sometimes. I play the role of definitely both in my business, because when it comes to business strategies and things that need to be done, then I can ask you what you think you should do. But if it's something you've never done before and I've done it with multiple people, well, then I do have a roadmap of sorts. So it is a different skill set and a different approach.
We've got a few more people who have popped in here. Ashley was my first guest on the show. Ash, it's always good to see you. And Ash, does video work. And I obviously love live streams and video too. So I like that. For those of you who might be just joining us, that missed it a minute ago, Rob was talking about that. Instead of just journaling, you can also record voice notes. You could record videos. I have a whole folder full of videos that I've been planning to throw away because they were things I was recording for videos I was going to post. But in some of them, I ended up kind of rambling, and I'm like, that was kind of a therapeutic little rambling session. I don't really want to throw that away.
Yes.
Maybe I'll go back to it. Maybe I won't. But I think video, in the same way as journal, allows you to go back and revisit those thoughts.
There's a good question here from Brian. Brian's asking, do you ever struggle?
There we go. I clicked the wrong one. Yeah.
With helping yourself? Yes. And I love the way you're talking about pretend you're the problems of your client. And that's a question I'll ask myself all the time. There's two questions I ask myself frequently is, one, how could I make this easy? Or how could I make this easier? Because I'm really damn good at making things difficult and complicated and getting in my own way. And when I find myself and I find my chest and back, I'm like, okay, how can I make this easier? Or I say, if I was coaching someone else's scenario, what might I do? So it's a similar kind of frame to that. And then also, something I've implemented in my life is I pay someone for accountability. So I've got a high-end business coach that I pay a whole heck of a lot of money. I've got different spiritual mentors that I work with. I've got a personal trainer that I work with for kickboxing, but I also pay someone that I do daily check-ins 4 days a week. So it's to not let myself to fall behind on these little things. So it's leveraging all the tools, the self-coaching, which you're implying, but then also all these other wonderful people around me.
That's one of the things I talked about with Brian Berman a while back with leading yourself, and that you can do a certain amount of that work on your own with yourself. You can think through all that stuff, but the biggest problems come when you don't know what you're supposed to be doing with yourself, right? Or there's a question that you need to be asking yourself and you don't see it. It's back to what you just said about that symbolism of being inside the jar and you can't read the label. Like you need somebody outside of yourself to help you keep moving up the mountain. Are you do you enjoy more working with people specifically on the entrepreneurial side or getting more into like personal work with people? I mean, I would imagine that for entrepreneurs, I know that those two are often very tied up. Um, do you spend a lot of time trying to tease those apart? What's the balance of that like?
This is so fun because people will show up either because the personal stuff isn't in a great place and they know it's affecting their business, so they want to start there, and then we do, and then the business stuff after it's easy. Or people will show up and they'll be, I'm struggling to enroll clients, I'm not attracting clients, I'm not happy with my messaging, I don't know. And then that's the external thing that they think they need, but whether it's on the second session or 2 months in, we'll have some breakthrough, and it's almost always on the personal piece because like you can't pull them apart. You, especially with something like this, like you are the coach, you are the entrepreneur, you're the head of marketing, of delivery, like you play all of these roles. So if you are overwhelmed, stressed, unhappy, out of integrity, if raise your voice at your children but didn't apologize, if there's any of that other bullshit in the way, it's going to affect your business. So you can't pull them apart. And I think if we'd have spoke a couple of years ago, because I was still very much unpacking and kind of cleaning out and dealing with all of my shadows and still doing a lot of deeper work, I was attracting more people that needed help there. And then we would work through that and then get to the business stuff. At the point that I'm at now, and also just it's like who I am and who I'm being and who I'm showing up at, it's people who have done a lot of that work already. They want help on the business side, but through doing that work on the business side, some other thing will bubble up that maybe they didn't realize or they thought was taken care of or wasn't.
When you talk about your journey and the way that your clients have shifted over time and the way that you imagining yourself has shifted over time, um, what do you think the main motivators of those changes have been?
It hasn't been intentional. I think it's just as I've shifted and as I've changed. It's one of the funniest things is it's really easy to get into overthink and thinking about like what you should do and this is what you should, and reading all the gurus and this is what good content looks like and this is how you win on LinkedIn. And you could honestly, we could do all that and then you are overwhelmed to the point where you're in paralysis by analysis and nothing kind of happens. Or you just continue to be on your journey of curiosity, of what I like to say is like do bullshit that scares you, and then pay attention to learn and document kind of as you grow and share what you're learning so others can learn from it. And then you just repeat that cycle. And if you're doing the latter, which is what I've been doing, then it's like, well, as I've been changing, as I've been learning, as I've been hitting new levels, then different things show up. Because the identity work that I'm doing now is this belief that I can go from having a personal practice to having an actual business, to being a legitimate business owner. Because I've got other coaches that work for me now within my container. And I'm created a completely like new offer that is much different than things in the past, but it only works if I step back, if I trust other people, if I hire other people to deliver certain elements. And it's a complete different state of being and way of thinking. So it's just so far removed from a couple of years ago when I was coming to terms with sharing publicly that, I struggled with alcohol and am now however many years sober. So it's not intentional. It's just me continuing on my journey. And as I continue on my journey, how I'm showing up changes. So it changes the kind of people that are showing up.
I like that. I mean, if we're paying attention to our lives, if we're being open to where the path is taking us, if we're trying to practice integrity, trying to live into our best self, then that in itself is a creative process, right? We are recreating ourselves constantly. And that's really good stuff. We're getting close to the end. I do want to try and there's a question here that Sam asked that I know is a big one for a lot of us, especially for coaches and struggling with empathy. Do you struggle at times being too empathetic and skewing your perspective? If you are too empathetic, if it does skew your perspective, how do you overcome that?
It's great because the kind of clients that I attract now are well aware, and it's probably weekly where I have someone who dumps whatever's going on right now, and they'll say some version on, do you think this is real or am I just making excuses for myself? And I have some version of this weekly where someone says that to me, and then I'll ask questions and find out. So, is there some kind of fear, something that's holding back, or is the person really trying to focus on a particular thing to achieve a greater outcome? So therefore is intentionally not, doing something X. And then it's just about giving yourself permission to not do it. Yeah, it's an interesting one because great coaches aren't afraid to call someone out on their shit. And to do that means that you have to be able to not always be in empathy because you don't want to be in collusion with someone's saboteur. So it's a dance, and it's a dance that I don't think will ever go away. And it's about, I think Rich Litvin has a great thing about this, and his line is about serving people, not pleasing people. And if you're truly going to be of service, that means you have to ask tough questions. It means that you need to call people out. It means that you need to, be the firm person that they need sometimes versus just always being like, oh, that's okay.
It's the old thing that gets called tough love, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't want to be cruel, but you've got to put your foot down sometimes
Yes.
if somebody's getting in their own way. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what they're paying you for, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, there's another question from Brian. Every coach seems to struggle with pricing as it often feels low grade selfish. Have you evolved to feel confident in value based coaching investments? Speaking of what they're paying you for.
Yes. And this is, oh, okay. My favorite story about this is I worked with someone a year and a half ago, and they really wanted to increase their rates. And it was just like, oh, am I being selfish? I don't want to seem greedy. I really want to serve people. I think something that a lot of people can relate to, especially if we go back to being high empathy. So I had them make a list of all of their clients and list out how much they were paying them. And they had clients that had been with them for several years who were grandfathered into older rates. And then the bottom were like newer clients were paying the new top rates and kind of everything in between. And then I had them rate them as far as who's doing the work, who's showing up to calls organized, who never misses a call, who is taking the work seriously. Perfect match. That the people that were doing it, showing up, taking it seriously, making real strides, making real changes were the people that are paying the most. And the people that were canceling calls, that were showing up week after week, complaining about the same stuff, were the people that were paying the least. And those that invest are invested. And like, even with me, I'll feel it. But the funny thing, for me to really get myself to like, I have to put a lot of money down. I knew I had to overhaul my main program. I knew I had to re-record a bunch of modules. I knew I had all these new frameworks and things that I'd come up with that I had shared with some one-on-one clients that maybe I had in an email, and it was a lot of work, and I was putting it off, and I was justifying all sorts of ways, how could I avoid it and all sorts of crap. And I signed up with a business coach and paid $30,000 to get some business coaching. And I can tell you, the moment I sent the money, I got off my ass. The moment I sent the money, I started taking action. I put a plan because I knew what I needed to do. And so it's ridiculous that I'm at this point now that I have to really feel the pinch for me to, but it applies to everyone. And I've seen it at all levels of coaching. So to know that the people you serve, if they take it seriously because of the amount they pay, they will do the work and they will take that work seriously too.
It's a powerful motivator.
It is. It really is.
So we're getting right here to the end. Robb, tell us, what is the best way for folks to contact you if they want to reach out?
The best way is LinkedIn. Of all the places on the interwebs, LinkedIn is my main squeeze. It is my main online community, is my place that I spend the most amount of time. I moonlight a little bit on Instagram, and if I'm on Instagram, it's more sharing stories, and which, I'll maybe share a bit more behind the scenes or just kind of whatever random things that I have going on. And I also put out a weekly newsletter, the Weekly Growth Habit, where I really do my best to give actionable strategies and tips and things that you can apply. And I publish that once a week. So that's another great way to get into my world if you are curious or interested.
Awesome. The last thing, everybody, I'm going to switch the chat off. Robb, I'm going to let you have the whole screen. Give us kind of the last takeaway, the last kind of bit of wisdom, the nugget that you want us to remember from all this. And then I'll come back in, everybody, and we'll sign off. It's all yours, Robb.
It's a fun one because of the amount of coaches that are here and the wonderful questions that you've all asked. It's an ongoing journey. And the things that you're facing right now, you will get through these, but then new things show up. And if I think about my own journey and everything I've been through, and I think about the kind of clients that I work with now, because I have I have a client that's already over at 500,000 for the year, and I have other clients that are trying to get stable 5K months and kind of everything in between, that the person and the people who are at multiple six figures, it's not like everything's magically solved. It's not like they don't have challenges. It's just they have, big ticket challenges, or the stakes feel higher. So if you can embrace that, it's always going to be a ride, there's always going to be new things showing up. And then you can embrace the things we think we were talking about in this session, which is being curious. What if this was easy? What if there was a different way to doing this? And then we talked a bunch about empathy on this recording, on this session with Nathan. I think, what would empathy for yourself look like if you were empathetic with yourself? And if you employ those superpowers, which you have innately as a good coach, and I'm going to assume that if you're listening to this, that applies to you, then you're going to get to help more people, express yourself more, enjoy the ride. Yeah, embrace the suck, Sam. Totally embrace the suck. And look, instead of like, how can I make this easy? How can I make this suck less? What would this look like if I didn't say it sucked? And then things can become way more fun, and it can just be this kind of experiment or ongoing game that you're playing. Because I turned 46 this year. Our eldest is 17, and I still feel like a kid, and that's because of this way of thinking.
I love it. Thanks so much, Rob. Everybody who's been here in the comments, thank you for joining us. Rob, take care. This has been great. Everybody else, I hope to see you again next Wednesday. We'll have Melissa Houston here, and everybody have a great Wednesday.
Thanks all.